Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May 31st meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Our thought for the day is Proverbs 16:12 and 13. A king detests wrongdoing, for his rule is built on justice. The king is pleased with the words from the righteous lips. He loves those who speak honestly. And I have the dog Pony from the kennel this morning. Hi, remember me? Come on. Strong. You're strong, aren't you? Come on. You want to walk yourself? Come on. Come over here. Look, so you see everybody can see you. Come here. Oh my gosh. That's why I always usually get the little dogs. This is a 6-month-old puppy, believe it or not. If you check out her feet, she's got some big paws on her. She is a Mastiff mix. When is she available, Tim? Friday. She will be available on Friday. Probably going to be a lottery for this girl. She's got a lot of energy. She wants to run around. So come on down to the kennel if you're interested in her, or we have 26 dogs, so 27 dogs, so we need some help. Oh, it's going to take a nap now. All right, thank you. Strong little girl. Madam Clerk?
We have several presentations today. The Brownfield area-wide planning grant project area, the Board of Elections voting equipment, and Solacom Technologies Next Generation 911. Under Resolutions Number 1, Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Travel.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez?
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. I have a couple potential hires, specifically in community development and 911. I'd like to discuss those with you. Also, possibly discuss our pending beginning of our union negotiations with the United Steelworkers at 911 and the operating engineers at the Bascule Bridge. And I think that's it for me this morning. So both of those topics are allowable under the Sunshine Act for executive session discussions. At the conclusion of our regular board meeting, I would ask that we go into the session and discuss those issues that I've outlined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the minutes of May 24th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Authorize payment of $1,000 to Andrus Crematory and Funeral Home Lorain for indigent veteran Willie Lee Williams Jr., Lorain, in accordance with the ORC 5901.25.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Community Development or contract to KMU Trucking and Excavating, LLC, Avon, in the amount of $10,835, which includes contingencies for any unforeseen change orders for Sandra Krasinski at 34710 Center Ridge Road North, Ridgeville, for home repair to be paid from the CDBG contract services account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Nice to see a local company got one of these bids.
Which one was that?
KMU Trucking
KMU
for
Trucking.
the Community Development number 11, Jim.
Yeah, we do work we have the list.
I know.
We're all on it. It's a shame that not all of our work goes local, but they do work very hard with getting the information to them.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Under Job and Family, authorized purchase service agreement with CCAO Service Corporation and Ohio CSEA Directors Association, the amount of $3,300 to provide fraud investigation and location services from West Publishing Corporation, Minnesota, effective June 1st, 2017 through May 31st, 2019, and authorized director to execute on behalf of the Board of Prosecutors' approval as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Under Children's Services, approve and enter in a sub-grant agreement, G 1819-115767, with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, the Ohio Department of Medicaid for state fiscal year 18 and 19 for children's services effective July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Under the Sheriff, approve amendment number 2 to operating agreement with Airmark Correctional Services, LLC, Pennsylvania. Amendment is to reflect the annual adjustment for price per meal cost adjustments, 2.10% increase, effective retroactive to May 1st, 2017 through April 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Mr. Cortez.
Do we want to go into the?
No.
I have a number of resolutions I need from the floor this
Okay.
morning, so maybe we could, if you would, Madam
Sure.
Commissioner.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pass these down to the clerk. Actually, I have 4 of them, and I'll walk through them with you. They all have to do with workforce development. The WIB board met last week. We had an extensive agenda of issues. While the meeting didn't go on, we did deal with a lot of changes that have to take place for WIOLA. If I wind back the clock just a little bit, last fall you designated the Workforce Development Agency as the comprehensive case management entity. The state developed this plan. You had 2 entities that you could choose from. One was the Job and Family Services, the other was the WDA. Job and Family Services indicated at the time that while they could perform that task, they didn't really think it aligned well with what they were doing, and they would prefer not to have been that chosen entity. We went with the Workforce Development Agency. Both those agencies are yours. You could have used either one, but you went with Workforce Development. That put us into a bit of a conflict with WIOLA because we also, several months before that, designated and the WIB designated, let me go back, WIB is the Workforce Investment Board, designated the Workforce Development Agency as staff to the Workforce Investment Board. Now, that's really just paper shuffling around. We've always done the work for the Workforce Investment Board, but you have to make these designations now under WIOLA. However, in WIOLA, which wasn't contained in WIR, you cannot be providing direct services and also be staff to the Workforce Investment Board. So comprehensive case management required us to provide direct services to youth with wraparound. As you know, we're combining the TANF and the WIOLA youth dollars and trying to get that one-stop product. That causes some disturbances, so we have to designate another agency as staff to the WIB board. The WIB board has chosen the Workforce Institute, which currently provides adult services under the contract that's due to expire at the end of June with the county to provide those services. So that's one resolution we need. Now, that solves the problem for the WDA. That creates a problem in the Workforce Institute because the Workforce Institute is not allowed to be staff to the Workforce Investment Board, so they're not able to provide adult services at the end of their contract. Their contract will expire at the end of June. So we're not really too concerned with that because it's ending. But all along, since the beginning of the year, we've been working with the Workforce Investment Board to move adult services into WDA and align it with providing direct services to youth and direct services to adult dislocated and workers. That was not allowable under WEA. It's allowable under WEOLA. We didn't do that until the state went to the comprehensive case management because we really weren't providing direct services, so why get into one piece of it and not the other piece at the time? But now we're able to provide both pieces. The strange part is it has actually gone full circle to where it was 15 years ago. Everything changes and then it comes back to be the same, right? It's really kind of weird.
Depends who's in charge at the time.
I suppose, Commissioner, but I really wish it would just stay the same for a long enough period of time to, get a lot of accomplishing done. We no sooner get pretty well tuned on what we're doing than more change comes. So we need to bring that adult services in-house. The job postings are going to go up today for various jobs. The Workforce Institute employees, their contracts expire at the end of June with the Workforce Institute. They'll be applying for those jobs, as will lots of other people. I believe a lot of them will look like the better candidates, but we're going to be recruiting through that process, as we have done before with consolidation of various departments. So that's another change. Now, at the same time, we need to extend the current one-stop operator agreement with the Workforce Institute so that they can go out with an RFP and procure a one-stop operator entity. You're required to procure that competitively. We need to do that, but we need more time to do that. Now, let me explain what the one-stop operator does. I've given you a whole bunch of terms here. Basically, they coordinate the services between there's about 12 entities in there. They do the MOUC each year of each partner's fractional share of what's going to be paid for, because there are some combined services. It's not very complicated. It's not a big role, but it's a role that has to be fulfilled. And again, under WEOLA, they have carved that out. The WDA has performed that services for a very long period of time, but again, it has to be competitively procured and bid upon. The WDA is not allowed to bid on it this year because there's a 12-month step back in WEOLA, so we will not be able to bid on that work. I suspect that there'll probably be 2 or 3 different agencies that will step forward. It'll either be Job Family Services, Lorain Community College, or even our own Community Development Department. So, but we still have to go out, we still have to do the RFP and then take a look at how we can do that. So there's plenty of options, but we're trying to get ourselves in alignment with all those changes from WEOLA. We were there until the state went to the comprehensive case management. We had it all worked out. And in order to comply with all of the state requirements, and they do have a waiver for their comprehensive case management, so they're not doing anything wrong, as we know they have done before. It's just upset the balance with everything we did to get into conformity with WEOLA when WEOLA actually became effective. So with that, Madam Clerk has a number of resolutions that I'm going to ask that we take a look at, and then we can dialogue more from each one of those resolutions.
So we're going to amend Resolution 15-812 adopted December 9th, 2015, designated Workforce Development Agency to serve as the staff to the Workforce Development Board.
I can't hear you, Teresa. I'm sorry.
We're amending Resolution 15-812.
Is that the first one that I have here? It says resolution to approve the Workforce Institute to serve as staff to the Workforce Development Board.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we got to do it right between the federal and the state regs as comprehensive case management changes, and now the waiver from the state. So if we don't do it right, we'll be non-conforming.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Further discussion?
That's what we call political red tape. Okay.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Now we're going to approve the purchase of service contract with Workforce Institute to serve as the Ha Means Job Center operator effective July 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2017 in the amount not to exceed $781,448.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
And then approve and enter in a WEO sub-grant agreement for state fiscal year 18-19 effective July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
That's the three I had.
Now, the first one covered the WDA to provide adult and youth program services, the Workforce Institute as staff to the WDB, and extended the one-stop contract for 3 months, correct? Were those the modifications?
No.
Yeah, we need that in the body of the language.
I just got this morning from Longo, so that's why I'm trying to go over it. Let me pass this down to Madam Clerk.
Well,
It is,
I didn't really understand the amendment because it didn't make sense to me without seeing the amendment. from
okay,
December.
sorry,
So,
let me give that to you.
I mean, we amended a thing, but. Okay, so there's 4 here. I only have 3 here. So,
Which one are you missing?
we did this one. I think number 2, designate WDA to provide adult and youth program services. It's not the one in here.
Okay, so we'll require a resolution for that. We'll get that resolution to you, but we can still do it from the floor here.
Yeah. So we're gonna, I need a motion to designate workforce development to provide adult and youth program services.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Can they make it any more complicated?
You know what, try not to, Commissioner, my apologies to the board. I do not like to bring things from the floor, especially things this complicated. But the WIB board did meet Thursday. We did have a short week through Monday, and we were trying to get all of this aligned, because while you're the supreme legislative authority when it comes to the final decision, we can't make these decisions without the WIB board also agreeing to those decisions. So it has to go to the WIB board first. And while I would have preferred to have this earlier on Tuesday to get it on the agenda, it didn't come until late because we were still working through the issue. So my apologies to the board. But now we have to execute all of these decisions by the end of June, and so it's going to be a bit of a Herculean task too. But thank you for your patience working through this, and I'll work with Madam Clerk to make sure we get the clear resolutions that we need to get these decisions carried on. And the only other thing I have is I want to modify my request for the executive session to include the potential purchase of real estate, because we've been talking about a real estate issue that I want to update you on also. I have some good news on that as we get a better understanding. We're getting close. And that's all I have this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, do you have anything?
I would request an executive session to discuss one matter of pending and one matter of imminent litigation.
We'll do our first presentation, Brownfield area-wide planning grant project area, maps Upton community development.
Chapter 2. Take 2. Good morning, Max.
Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. To reintroduce the reason for this presentation, I stated last week that we had come upon this funding opportunity last July, and I was instructed by Director Romanchek to prepare an application for funding. We were not lucky enough. We were fortunate to be funded, one of only 19 communities in the nation, one of only 3 communities in EPA's 6-state Region 5, to be funded under the Brownfield area-wide planning program. So as part of the grant, there is a training conference relative to the grant where I am going to be presenting 5 slides about our project area. So this is the view of what they call the catalyst site from the bridge. It's the pellet terminal docks, which is, the grant was kind of structured around the docks, Broadway and then 28th Street as a corridor redevelopment plan. Here is the project planning area. We leveraged our Brownfield assessment grant, and part of that grant was identifying brownfield. So if you see all of the highlighted green properties, those are the identified brownfields in the project area. There's also a lot of vacant land. A lot of that is frontage that's owned by the steel mills on 28th Street. So this is the corridor area. It also includes the trails on the other side of the river. So a lot of this plan is going to focus on redevelopment, connectivity, and comprehensive revitalization efforts for this corridor. So some quick facts about our project area. Again, some of these are going to be redundant to this audience, but when we present it. So the pellet terminal is owned by the city of Lorain. It was bought when LTV Steel went through their bankruptcy and moved the port out to the Cleveland area. One interesting bit of information in my research relative to the grant application, there are 9 different ethnic clubs within the immediate project area. It kind of reinforces the idea of Lorain as an international city and as the steel plant as something that drew workers from around the world. So we had the Slovak Club, the Polish American Club, the Italian American Brotherhood, the Sons of Italy, the Puerto Rican Club, the Russo-Slav Club, Mexican Mutual, the Croatian Club, and the Anglo-Saxon Club, all within relative proximity of the project area. On the right-hand side are the demographic indicators of the 6 census tracts that make up the project area. And I just want to contrast those to the statistics for the county as a whole. The unemployment rate in the project area is 19.8%. This is taken from 2010 to 2014 5-year estimates from the American Community Surveys. That was the latest and best data available at the time of writing the grant. The 2016 ACS has just come out in the last few months, but I wanted to make an apples-to-apples comparison over the same time period. In the county, the unemployment rate over that time period was 9.6%. The households receiving food stamps in the project area, 42.2%. The Neo Can-Do and the Mandel School for Poverty list that food stamp recipients is one of the greatest indicators of poverty in an area, more so than unemployment and median household income, because it's not a static measure, it's always changing. So in the county at that same time period, it was 14.3%. The families below poverty, 32.7, and individuals, 37.8, respectively in the county. That's 11.1 and 14.6%. The median household income in the county over that same time period, $52,610, and the per capita income in the county at $26,487. So as you see, when you stack up all of these indicators up against the county, and then when you stack it up against the state, this really is an area of need within the county that we're going to get the opportunity to pay some special attention to over the next couple of years. Last few indicators, the population with 25 years and older without a high school diploma in the county, 8.1% compared to 34.2 in the project area over that time period. So you can really see the need in this area. So now we were asked to put together a slide of pictures of the project area, kind of a descriptive slide. So I chose obviously the Republic Steel site, the commercial corridor, and then the pellet terminal docks, and more of an aerial view from the terminal docks to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at in totality through 4 pictures as best as we could. Now the outcomes or the objectives of the Brownfield area-wide plan. Number 1 is to develop a shared vision between the community and its stakeholders for the redevelopment of the pellet terminal site. Also included in this is identifying second-tier brownfield sites, because what we're focusing on is redeveloping a corridor So if we're taking one site at the northwest end of the corridor, we want to identify additional sites that connect the corridor for an entire redevelopment project or plan. We're also going to be focusing on actionable items from that plan, concrete steps that we can do to move it forward, not just to produce a plan for purposes of going through that exercise. The second thing we want to accomplish is identify reuses and an action plan for the future of the Republic Steel property. It's something that's kind of been in limbo. It really tends to fluctuate with the macro economy, and as we all know, they've suffered quite a bit of job losses, and it's up in the air whether or not they're going to be what they were in the past. So we need to kind of identify what that property may look like 25, 30 years from now. And as I mentioned before, connectivity is going to be a big part of this plan. And part of that connectivity is preparing this corridor to be a smart corridor. You will see the IoT acronym, that's the Internet of Things. Laying a world-class fiber optic cable to allow for technology-based economic development would competitively advantage the city of Lorain for future tech industry attraction. There's many cities that made this investment, and they're now reaping the rewards of technology startups and technology business parks that are locating in former industrial sites. So laying that fiber or having a plan to lay that fiber will be a big part of the redevelopment of the corridor. And the other part of connectivity is connecting the population to the lake, to the Black River, and allowing for multimodal. That's hiking, biking, walking, driving to the lake. And lastly, we want to align our efforts from a planning, from a workforce, from an economic development perspective to address the specific needs of that population. Oftentimes in comprehensive planning processes, there are big ideas. We want to focus on how we can help that specific vulnerable population and that specific corridor benefit from that plan. And that is going to be a main focus over the next couple of years. And that is the 5 slides after much anticipation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Max, why don't you talk a little bit about the partners and bringing the coalition together and how we're going to work together to achieve some of these outcomes?
Absolutely. So similar to our assessment grant, we brought together a coalition of organizations to support the grant application. The City of Lorain, the Lorain Growth Corporation, Charleston Village, as well as the Lorain County Health Department. And each one of them have specific delineated tasks within the grant execution itself. All of them wrote letters of support and letters of commitment to take part in the planning process. Additionally, we received letters of support from Senator Sherrod Brown's office, Congressman Marcy Kaptur's office, the Sheriff's office, as well as a few other, the Black River AOC and other organizations. So we're looking forward to bringing this coalition together to have multiple points of view on this, this particular corridor.
You know, people don't understand how much coordination it takes, how much effort to pull everybody together, get everybody in the room, get everybody on the same page, collect all the documents, fill out the grants. You know, the legwork and the on-ground work is a lot, and it's never seen. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. It's got to be done. And of course, we'll have this study, but there's a long road ahead even after this is done, because then you got to try to find the dollars to carry out the objectives of the plan. But I can tell you this, without doing this, there's not going to be any dollars.
That is correct. I didn't put it on the slide because, again, this presentation's for a broader audience, but I remember you speaking last week about leveraging our money, and this particular grant is a $200,000 grant that did not require any local match whatsoever.
It's the best kind.
We're absent this funding. planning process of this magnitude, I don't think would have been possible.
Every time something comes about unexpectedly, they're looking for turnkey, shovel-ready, how fast can you go? And several times over the last decade, we found ourselves in the unenviable position of not being ready. So this'll position us. Doesn't mean there's going to be a lot of changes down there. It just means that we're preparing so that in the event that something materializes, we can capitalize upon that. People don't understand how much work goes into this, and it's all part of the mosaic of community development, economic development, and you guys are doing a great job up there. By the way, for Don and your team, I keep getting a lot more feedback on the impact that we're making. So, going to keep up the good work out there.
Thank you.
Well, like any project, Max, I mean, we've all been around. You're not quite as long, Don and I, maybe a little bit longer, and Lori, but always, these things take so much time just to get the implementation money. Once you do get the plan together, that nobody should think this will get done in a couple of years and we'll be redeveloping the waterfront, but it's a start so where we can start chasing money to do that once we have all our planning together. So. Yeah,
that's absolutely correct. A lot of times when you go for follow-on funding, they want to see a comprehensive plan that's been in place that has the community input. Right. So getting this for this corridor will be huge when we go to seek follow-on funding to actually implement these steps.
Wonderful.
I can't believe it's been 15 years since I was on city council and we took over that pellet property.
Really?
That was in 2002.
Wow.
It's unfortunate, Commissioners.
Long ago.
I remember when it, in fact, there was some jobs lost there that moved to Cleveland in order to facilitate the disassembly of the pellet terminal. And I remember how big the pier was after they took all the material off it. You didn't realize just how big the pier was down there. And it was exciting because development was right around the corner. And it just really never occurred. So hopefully this will be part of the paving the way towards something actually happening down there.
Ignite a fire, hopefully.
We're working on it, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your efforts on this. I mean, winning a grant's not an easy thing to do, and certainly to achieve this grant when a lot of folks did not, certainly quite an accomplishment, and want to thank you for that. And I know as you were talking about access to the lakefront, obviously we're working on our lakefront grant as well too through NOACA and trying to figure out how to connect people to the lakefront. And so it'll probably be some crossover where we need to work closely with you on that. And and I can't say enough about the importance of brownfield initiatives, and some of the legislators in Columbus still don't understand the importance of brownfields, especially in communities, the urban communities. But when you look at that target area of 42% being on food stamps, that's very troublesome. So anytime we can look at improving an area to hopefully create economic opportunities in the future, it's really critical.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thanks, Max.
Okay. The next one is Paul's here, right?
Paul Adams is
Is
on.
on.
Yep.
Yeah. Board of Elections, regards to the voting equipment, Paul Adams.
And Jimmy Kramer.
Oh,
Hi, Jimmy
I didn't see him,
Kramer.
sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Mr. Adams.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk of new voting equipment, and the Secretary of State's office, along with the County Commissioners Association, has asked that directors of elections across the state have a conversation with their commissioners about the future of voting equipment and what it's going to look like as we replace that equipment, and also what that cost is going to be. So I wanted to start this morning with talking about where we are currently. Our current system, what we have, how long I see that being viable. As we talk about this long process, I think it's going to be to replace the equipment. The current equipment that we have was built in 2004. We put it into operation here in Lorain County in 2005. So at this point, we're dealing with equipment that's about 13 years old. Right now, we have a little over 1,200 operational units available in the county for use. In order to open the entire county for an election, we need a little over 1,100. So we have approximately, when you actually figure out the exact numbers, we have about 800 spare units that are available, or not 880 spare units that are available. At this point, due to the age of the equipment, we're getting to the point now to where we're losing about 20 to 25 of them a year are no longer operational. Now, when I say no longer operational, I want to point out that we haven't seen any issues in terms of tabulating ability, problems with memory cards, and those kind of issues. The issues that we are seeing are with the hardware. So the printers, the stands that hold up the units that were specially designed just for these particular voting units are beginning to break down. So we can't use those units because they have to have a printer, they have to have the hardware functioning pieces to them. We can currently purchase some of that equipment from our vendors. However, all of that equipment was also built back in 2004 and is sitting in some warehouse in Texas. So when we purchase that new equipment, not only is it more expensive because there's less of it, but it's not as reliable as it otherwise would have been had it been newer. So we are running into those problems. I anticipate that at this point, we can go at least a year and a half, 2 years longer with the current equipment and being able to maintain enough spare units to be able to support continual losses of voting equipment that we see. At that point, then it's going to get to a critical point where we are going to need to replace. And we would need to look at, and I think most of the legislators down in Columbus, along with the County Commissioners Association, is looking that we would have this new system in place before the presidential election in 2020. From an election administration standpoint, that means we're going to want to begin implementing this sometime no later than 2019. Because we need to go through, there's an awful lot of training that has to happen with our poll workers. Our poll workers throughout the county, we have about 1,200 of them. They do an incredible job every year. However, they only do this twice a year. So the training that's going to have to go into this, we're going to want to make sure that in 2019, either in the primary or the general, preferably the primary, because usually that's smaller and it's easier to get up and running in a smaller election, get that ready for the 2020 presidential elections. In 2005, I'll get into a little bit of costs here. In 2005, our current voting system was paid for with federal funds, HAVA funds. The final cost for that ended up to be somewhere around $3.5 million is what the total cost was. This current cycle that we're looking at and the current proposals that have been submitted or bids that have been submitted, right now, if you take those, there was an email that I had forwarded off to Teresa that included bids from various companies. If you take those exact numbers and you try to figure out what a cost for a county of our size would be, those numbers would put us somewhere in the range of $7 million, a total cost. Now, there's two things to keep in mind there. The first thing is, I've talked with some of the vendors just recently at a conference in Steubenville, and those costs are general costs that are not custom fit to the size of various counties. So for a county of our size, we're the 9th largest county in the state. A number of the vendors that have talked to me have said, well, they have to submit these proposals to the state as just a general number. But for a county of our size, that number would most likely be lower because of the quantity we're going to be purchasing. They've also told me that because of the size of our county, they would be more than interested in coming up and doing a demonstration in person with members of the Board of Elections and with the county commissioners to see what that equipment is going to look like. So the other piece of that is, and part of the reason why I'm here today, is because the legislature, as they are looking for funding to provide for this, they're looking at, well, what's the big picture? What's the total cost that we're going to be looking at? And that's where these numbers come from, and the reason why they're asking boards of elections and county commissioners to sit down and have a conversation of, number one, is it something that we're interested in doing? There are some counties that have already purchased new equipment. One of them is Cuyahoga. They are not necessarily looking at new equipment right now, as are a few other counties. I think Ashland County just recently signed an agreement to purchase new voting equipment. So there are some counties that are not looking for this. I would say the vast majority of counties, though, are in our situation to where we are looking to purchase new equipment.
Not to interrupt you,
Yes.
Paul, but we have I actually serve on the committee with
Yes.
the Board of Elections officials. They've been working on this for a couple of years, actually backfilling those counties who already have expended the money. They're trying to get that done also. So they are looking to get funded for it,
Correct.
but after the fact. But
Correct.
they did need the new equipment. Okay.
The other piece of this is, with that legislation, I know you've worked with your association, I've worked with ours, I've recently served on our legislative committee. There's a lot of talk about what percentage the state's going to pay. And I know there had been a bill that had been submitted to where it would be a 50-50 split. There's talk of whether it would be an 80-20 split. Earlier in the year, we were hoping that there was going to be some money provided in this year's state budget by the end of June. As we get closer to that, it looks that that's less and less likely, and it looks like there's a possibility that this money may become available in the capital budget in 2018. From my understanding, talking with our legislative committee, there seems to be some concern with some counties that have chosen a managed system plan to where instead of purchasing the equipment outright, you would do like you do with a copy machine. You pay an annual contract, and then when the new equipment becomes available in 6 or 7 years, then you get the new equipment because you're paying an annual fee. Apparently, there is some kind of problem with putting reimbursements for that in a capital budget because it's not a capital purchase. So there are some issues that are going on there. From an election standpoint, I will also mention one of the reasons why we're having a little bit of trouble getting definitive numbers is because a number of these vendors that we're dealing with aren't completely through all of their testing yet. Our current election vendor that supports Lorain County, Dominion Voting Systems, they have a system that they would present to us and have been showing us pieces of it, but it hasn't finished federal certification yet. It needs to be federally certified. They're looking at sometime in September. Once it goes through federal certification, then it has to go through state certification, which usually doesn't take as long. But a number of these vendors are still looking at getting completely certified. So when that happens, there's occasionally, when they go through certification, they'll be required to add an additional piece of equipment or change something on that system, which may adjust those prices. So when I give you that number of approximately $7 million, that is taking the number that has been provided from the bids that I have seen that's being used to create a ballpark figure. Once again, I would see that number to significantly come down, not only from whether or not there is state funding that is provided, but also just because of our sheer size. Let's see here. The other item that we're looking at, and it is mentioned in the advisory from the Secretary of State's office, is not only are they looking at whether or not a county is looking to replace equipment, but what direction that county is looking to go towards. There are a number of counties that are going with optical scan paper. There are also some counties like ours that are looking to stay potentially with touchscreen voting. Our Board of Elections has voted that they would like to continue to look at staying with a touchscreen option for our county. I see that as a necessity for our county for two reasons. Number one, the voters in our county are very used to it. It is something that they're very comfortable with going in and doing. The other piece of it comes from a cost standpoint. And since 2012 or 11, when we had to provide bilingual ballots, in order for our county to go to an optical scan system, we are looking at an additional cost for all those paper ballots because we have to have English and Spanish on all of them. In 2012, we had a 5- and 6-page 18-inch ballot for every voter in the county that voted via mail. Now, had we had that at the polls, whereas on the touchscreen, when you go up, you make the selection, you choose English or Spanish. If we would have had to have the option to have the paper ballots with English and Spanish on them, that would have produced a bill for ballots that would have approached $400,000 at a minimum. So there are counties that are looking at going from a touchscreen to an optical scan unit. One of the other reasons why that's happening is because there are fewer vendors that are producing touchscreen systems. So there are some of the smaller counties are looking at going with a touch or with a optical scan option. So the other part of this is, you know, for me to have that conversation with you about us staying with a touchscreen option. I and our board are in agreement that we would like to see that, and I'd certainly be willing to answer any of your questions about that if you're not on the same page. And that's actually all I have. So if there's any questions or...
I got a bunch.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've been going through all this, and the Secretary of State's asked us to get together, and how many actual machines would our county need? Actually, you said we need 1,100 full bore. What's our overplay?
Yes, so...
It's been an issue all over the state. Some counties, you want 25, 30% extra machines and trying to come up with a cost. So I think we're more there, Paul, because we did have a vendors conference in Franklin County about 3 weeks ago. I don't know if you were down there, but we had all the
I heard
vendors
about
coming
that,
to the
yes.
State House to show all their wares. It was a Wednesday, so I couldn't attend. But they did show, again, it was like a, you know, any other business to business, but it had all the vendors there. But what are we looking at for numbers of pieces of equipment?
So the exact numbers of voting units that we would need.
Correct.
The formula the Secretary of State's office has provided in the recent advisory, which is the formula we use currently for distribution, is our total voter registration for the county, which is 206,000, divided by 175. Okay. So that puts us at a total of 1,155 units we would need to be able to deploy and operate in an election.
How about the over? In case of breakdown, anything, what are we doing, 2%, 3% in regards to that?
We would be comfortable with at least 80 to 100 more than that, because we need approximately 35 for poll worker training, which is usually at an off-site location in a large election.
Okay.
And we also need a number of those in-house for in-office voting, usually about 35 to 40
So
in a
about
large
8%
election.
more than what we actually use in the field for the
Yeah.
actual day of the election.
Yeah.
In regards to your cost, to go back to the poll books, because poll books were, it was nice that we had funding for poll books.
Yes.
But it was supposed to be about a 70%, 30% split. A lot of counties got different because it wasn't all in cost. The cards, the cables, the setup. Do we have all of that included in this number when we're talking about the $7 million number? Does that include everything, the battery packs, the...
From the information that has been provided on the bids that were submitted to DAS, yes. As far as close as I can get.
Okay.
Yes, that
Right, 'cause
is
that was one of
included.
the major concerns with the poll books, 'cause counties and some with only 50%. I don't remember what our reimbursement ended up being, but I don't think we got in the mid-70s on reimbursement, did we?
I don't think it was.
No, we got less because it didn't include all the,
67%.
yeah, so it didn't include all the ancillary products that we were supposed
Correct.
to have because it wasn't all included when it was done. Again, Secretary of State's office has worked very well with the Commissioners Association and with the people I've worked with, the Board of Elections officials, very well with us working and attending some of our joint meetings. I did have a luncheon with Senator Obhoff, who's in charge of, who's Senate President.
Yes.
And as he said, it's nice to wish for all these things, but we got a $600 million shortfall, so don't expect anyone to be in the budget this year. So, which was kind of depressing when there's so much work here, because we do have a lot of support in the House on this.
Yes.
A lot of people have stepped up to the plate to get this going, but again, as you said, I don't know if there's going to be any success in this year's budget at all for next year, and again, the capital. And then just even backfilling, I mean, Cuyahoga County, now the second largest county in the state. I think Franklin's passed them.
Yep.
To outlay this kind of money for fair elections, I mean, when in the past the federal government paid for this, and the state is actually supposed to be in charge of elections. We've asked them many times. Actually, when we started this process a couple years ago, we asked the state to come up with a singular vendor, and let's run it through you. But after some issues with other software companies, you know, especially in regard, like the city of Lorain, the Supreme Court recommended a vendor as a preferred vendor, and then they went out of business. Commissioners and Board of Elections said probably not a good idea just to have a singular vendor, you know, sole source. So, when do you have to have this turned into the Secretary of State's office that we've had our meetings? It's a requirement.
I
We got
believe
next
it's
week?
June 12th.
June 12th, okay.
Yes.
So is everybody sort of comfortable? I mean, just like I said, we spent a couple years working on this, and now we're at this one point we had to have the meeting. So, I mean, we can't argue with your numbers, really. You're not being exorbitant. You're not asking for 300 extra machines to have hanging around, so.
No. I will mention two other quick things. One is, just to make sure that the commissioners, if you have any questions about us not being on the same page of continuing on or trying to continue on with touchscreen units, I would like to address any of those concerns. The other piece, when you're talking about voting equipment, I do want to point out to the commissioners, and if you go to any of these demos that they're going to be doing across the state, as I'm sure there'll be a number of them over the next 6 to 8 months, one of the things that we also have as a requirement for our county, because of the bilingual ballots, is high-speed optical scan scanners. While we would be looking to continue touchscreens at the polls, the number of people that are voting via the mail is continuing to increase. We had 35,000 in this last presidential election. When we're dealing with a 5 or a 6-page 18-inch ballot in a large presidential election, hand scanners is not going to cut it for us. I will tell you right now that in 2012, if that race would have been much closer for president, there probably would have been, the national media would have been in our parking lot at the Board of Elections, because we didn't get done scanning all of the ballots in 2012 until about 7 o'clock in the morning on the Wednesday after the election, because we just couldn't. Now, this last election in 2016, we were able to rent a couple high-speed scanners that we were able to use. So when we're looking at what that next system is going to be, it's not just what we're looking for at the polls, but we're also looking at what is going to work for all of our people that are voting, or all the voters that are voting absentee via the mail, because we have to be able to scan those relatively quickly, because that number is growing.
But that can't be part of this request.
Though that is.
Oh, we do have the high-speed scanners in there as part of the request?
Yes. All of the bids for those companies that do have high-speed scanners, it's in their quotes that they've provided DAS.
But is the, oh, okay, so the DAS will accept that, and
Yes.
House and Senate will look at it as part of the package?
Yep.
In probably next year's capital bill?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, I didn't know they were doing the other stuff also. I thought it was just the actual voting equipment on. That was my last discussion, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on it. I was going to ask, because of the increasing number of early voters, what impact that was going to have on this overall plan. And, Commissioner Kalo, I have always felt this should be the state's responsibility, and have never understood why it wasn't. And, I agree with my colleague. After his conversation with the Senate President, I wouldn't anticipate seeing any dollars, this year. I think there's a possibility of that possibly coming up next year. Unfortunately, I think they still want to try to find a way to provide some tax breaks for wealthy Ohioans if they can. That seems to be their priority, instead of taking care of families and local government. But when we look at these numbers, this is something that, we try to educate the public about all the time, is that, much like having a home, there's some expenses that don't go away. Sometimes the hot water tank needs to be replaced, the furnace, whatever it may be, the roof, and this comes up every once in a while, and I'm hoping that this state will at least meet us halfway, hopefully greater than that. If you were a wagering man, where do you think we might end up? I'm not terribly optimistic, so maybe you're more optimistic than I am.
I bet it's probably going to be closer to the 50-50. I know Commissioner Kalo has been working with some of the legislators maybe a little more closely than I have, but I have a feeling it's probably going to be closer to the 50-50 than it is the 80-20.
Which is going to be a significant cost for counties, a lot of our small counties also, who just don't have the funds to do these kinds of things. And it's a state-run election. We follow their rules, but they don't want to pay for it. Sort of like indigent defense.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
And I will also point out, you mentioned the smaller counties. Some of those are looking to go to the optical scan option. And when you look at the upfront cost, the optical scan option may seem like it's cheaper when you just look at the purchase of the equipment. But when you start figuring in the cost, we have to have the large number of ballots that we have to be able to provide to all of the polling locations, then it becomes a much, much higher cost. And the other concern that we have from an election administration standpoint is ensuring that all of those voters are provided the correct ballot. We have a place in North Ridgeville, the North Ridgeville Education Center, 6 different precincts. In a primary election of 2018 of next year, there could be upwards of 20 different ballot styles. So a poll worker would have to make sure that they're going over pulling the correct ballot, as opposed to a touchscreen option where the correct ballot's going to come up on the screen. So that is something that I know the smaller counties are looking at, but from our standpoint, the ongoing cost is a cost that also has to be looked at.
And for the folks at home watching the meeting, because sometimes they think decisions are all political or party decisions, this is a bipartisan election board.
That is correct. Both the two Democrats and the two Republicans on the Board of Elections have both agreed they would like to move forward with looking at new equipment, and have both agreed, or both sides have agreed, they'd like to look at a touchscreen option.
Thanks for all the work, Paul.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
All
Paul.
right, thanks.
You got a couple minutes to talk about those garages?
Sure.
Have you've had a chance to take a look at some of that stuff?
I got an email from Karen last Friday.
Just last Friday, I thought I had talked to you a few weeks back. Sorry.
Correct, yeah, you talked with me, you got the ball started rolling, so we're well into that process of looking for that additional storage space.
Yeah, I think it's time, just for the commissioners, you know, we were renting trailers and parking them on the grass over there for storage. Paul called me one day, all full of anxiety, because I had some surveyors out over there, and we purchased that swale area to complete our stormwater project through Sheffield Township. I didn't realize at the time, but Paul was camping out on somebody else's property with his trailers for storage.
Very briefly.
Very briefly. But like usual, you know, he was making do with something, because he had to come up with a solution for his needs for storage, and especially during the elections. My understanding, that was the big time.
Correct.
During the elections, and we're going to be extending the banks of that area, and that green space where he placed those trailers is no longer going to be available. And as part of that property acquisition, we also gained some property to the north side of the parking lot behind the Board of Elections. It is my intention to present a plan to the Board of Commissioners to put up some storage buildings back there. We've needed them since the day we bought that building. Paul and I are forever looking for solutions for storage, for vehicles, it's time. They're not going to be elaborate buildings. There'll be some kind of pole building, but they will need electric and things like that. And my question is, I don't think we need to condition them, right? We just need them to have electric and storage capability, right?
At this point, some of the equipment we would look to put in there, we might want to look about whether or not there's any kind of heating option, just because
Okay.
the temperature might get to the point to where plastic or those kind of things might create problems that we
Yeah,
would store.
you know what, we can probably do part of it as conditioned storage and part of it as non-conditioned storage.
Okay.
Yeah, those are things we need to work out. I just wanted to let the board know we've been having these discussions. Paul's always coming up with unique ways of making it easy for us, but it's time for us now to fix this. As you know, the location has presented some challenges before, and I want to remedy this long term, and I want to put up a sizable building back there that's going to take us into the future for long past when I'm gone. Hopefully, you can stay around as long as you want, but I want to be done with it.
Oprah says till 2036.
Okay, all right. So, you know, just keep me in the loop while you guys have those conversations, and if we're going to do that, we really should try to get it done by the fall, so that we don't interfere with any of your November elections. It won't take long. Those type of buildings go up pretty quick. The hardest part will be getting it ordered and getting the electric out there.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Commissioner, I would just also like to say, kind of as a follow-up to what Mr. Cortez said, you know, over these last couple of years, we have had those storage problems, and every time I've contacted Mr. Cortez, he's always been more than helpful to work out those kind of issues. And there's been times when we've had to look at other locations to where we've looked at a number of different options for storage needs, and I'm glad that we're looking at maybe more of a permanent solution to our storage needs that we have.
Thanks, Paul. Good job.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Last but not least, third.
Solacom Technologies, next generation 911 equipment presentation.
Good morning.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Mr. Cortez. Will the presentation be visible here as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ernie's got to turn you on.
Let me walk into this just a bit for you, Greg, okay? And for the folks that are here, we have been actively working on a new 911 centers. It's not a Big secret, folks out there. All you have to do is pass college, see our great big tower out there alongside the building that we purchased for this purpose that we're beginning this week to perform the exterior renovation on. This is phase 2, working toward new next generation 911 equipment. We met with some vendors. We reviewed some equipment. Most of it's very, very similar. It all is great, cutting edge stuff. So the differences are whether you buy a Chevy, a Ford, or a Chrysler. So when it came down to that, we were thinking that a couple things. Mr. Dixon is local. He lived in Amherst. In addition, we worked together in the 90s. He used to be our 911 director back in the 90s, prior to anybody here taking office. And the equipment that they presented to us really gave us the wow factor, as did a lot of the other vendors. I want to be candid about that. But when all things are said, when we can deal locally, we like to deal locally. So I thought it very prudent to ask him to come in for a follow-up with the Board of Commissioners and show some of the things that the equipment could do so that we can start moving forward with this. The other thing he also said that piqued my attention greatly was that he could probably get me a 90-day turnaround on the equipment. So that really sparked my attention. So with that, I'll present you to Mr. Dixon, and I'll move your screen over for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as Jim mentioned, I'm locally here in Amherst, and I've been with Solacom Technologies now for about 8 years. I've sold 911 systems for about 20 years, ever since leaving the county here, so some interesting
You have to
experience.
get closer to the
Greg, they
microphone.
can't hear you
Sure
for
can.
taping.
Yeah, there you go.
How's this? Forgive me if I turn my back to you here so I can see
It's
the
okay.
monitor a little bit. I'll try to look at this one over here too, but it's been a pleasure. My entire life has been focused on public safety, so it's been a pleasure to populate these systems across the United States. We do consider ourselves to be a leading developer in mission-critical communications. We have over 30 years of experience, a lot of technology in-house, a lot of engineering staff on board, coming through that 20-year cycle and now producing the next generation 911 system that we're presenting to Lorain County. So there's a map of the United States and those states where we have current systems across the country. Very heavy population there in Indiana and Kentucky as well, and I can share some of those more intimate sites with you if you're interested. I don't have those in the presentation today here. So looking at your current situation today, you have a 911 center on Gateway Boulevard. The backup center is out on North Ridge, and you're in the process of moving over to the Burns Road facility, as I understand. And so there's 14 secondary PSAPs today that will need to have equipment replaced. 13 of those are government facilities, one of those is private. And so in addition to the Burns Road and Gateway Boulevard facilities, there'll be a total of 16 county-wide PSAP locations that will need to be replaced.
So Greg, as you go through, we have a lot of folks that from the public that come in. Why don't you explain what a secondary PSAP is as we go through the presentation? I know a lot of people wouldn't ask that you normally present to, but I want them to understand that.
Understood. So going forward, the primary PSAP is Public Safety Answering Point, and that will exist at the Burns Road facility. The backup facility will now become the Gateway Boulevard facility where they are operating today. And so a secondary PSAP would be those police and fire departments located throughout the county serving individual communities. A number of those are still answering 911 calls from the 911 center and dispatching those police cars and fire trucks accordingly, whereas a number of communities have gone with direct dispatch through the county, and they're answering those calls and then dispatching those units as appropriate. So the secondary PSAPs are basically a police and fire department located throughout the county, a couple EMS providers there as well. And so some of the drivers for system replacement is the age of your current equipment and the need to advance to next generation technology. I remember when I was with the county, we had the privilege of advancing to wireless technology and being able to answer excuse me, cellular calls from people calling for help. And so we migrated through phase 1 and phase 2, and now the need for the ability to answer calls from people who are texting to 911, right? That will tremendously benefit the hearing impaired community, which is obviously a large population here in the county as well, and move the county forward as other technologies come along, like pictures and video, which are coming at some point in the future. It will also prepare the county to connect to the state ESInet, the emergency services network that the state is currently deploying. They have an RFP out for that. We are also responding to that RFP. And so the statewide ESInet is a network that will connect all of the PSAPs in the state together so that we can work more seamlessly, and it will give Lorain County a very sincere stakehold in the ground as they go forward. A number of the counties who have very limited funding will probably be absorbed by that state solution, and I think you lose a tremendous amount of that personalization when you join a large, complex system like that. So if someone's having a heart attack at the McDonald's in Elyria, it's a very difficult thing for a statewide solution to determine exactly which McDonald's and where that situation may be. Unfortunately, many times callers don't know where they're calling from, which only makes that situation more difficult. So the current requirements are to replace your legacy 911 equipment and install a turnkey geodiverse system, half of it being located at Burns Road, half of it being located at Gateway Boulevard. In the event that there is a need to evacuate, either facility can handle all of the traffic in the county from any type of a 911 caller. Both centers can operate at the same time to further complement the number of call takers available to answer calls. And we'll be replacing 30 pre-existing call taker positions throughout the county and adding an additional 15 positions total. 12 of those will be added. 12 of those will be added at the new Burns Road facility. So that'll be a total of 16 locations across the county that will be receiving new equipment. Total call taker position count across the county is 41, and one private EMS provider would be Life Care EMS, which would be 42. Life Care would ideally be paying for their own equipment as a private EMS provider. It's my understanding that the 911 plan does not provide the funding for their equipment, so they would need to purchase their own if they want to be a part of this solution. That, again, is entirely up to your decision. So beyond that, the system, beyond these 42 positions, the system will still have the ability to grow 79 positions. And so you would have the ability to obviously enhance or grow both facilities, expand across the county as needed. I see it going the opposite way. I see more consolidation than growth. But for example, if a neighboring county came to you and they were financially strapped, you would actually be able to lend them 911 positions off of your system. So it gives you a lot of capability and, again, a very strong position throughout the state as it relates to 911 going forward. So as far as what we're proposing, again, we're proposing a fully redundant geodiverse solution. Half would be located at the Burns Road facility, half would be located at Gateway Boulevard. And obviously, Lorain County has more tornadoes and more tornado-related deaths than any other county in the state. Out of those 88 counties, unfortunately, we've experienced quite a few of those in the past. Thankfully, none too recently.
Microphone, sorry.
Oh, let me come back up here. I apologize.
Do you want the handheld mic? Would it be easier?
Perhaps, if you have one. Thank you so much. And on?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So again, as I mentioned before, one of the things that it will pave the way for is text to 911, and then of course pictures and video that will follow going forward as technology presents that capability. This is just a quick snapshot of what those systems will look like, providing we are able to provide those to you at the Gateway and the Burns Road facilities. So what we'll be providing is a turnkey installation services along with project management, connecting these PSAPs together throughout the county, and also connecting you to the state ESInet once that becomes available. I would suspect that's probably 3 years out yet before that level of connectivity comes into play. We would establish an interface to their local phone systems, and then, of course, provide training from an administrative perspective. And all of the call takers employed by the county and those employed by these respective secondary PSAPs, these police and fire departments throughout the county.
When you do the transition, are you going to have, for instance, while you're training, people will be on the old system, but some of the new system will be in operation? Or is it going to be you go live with a totally new system?
That's an excellent question. So what we try to do is train everyone as close to cutover as we possibly can. What I envision happening here is that the new system will be installed adjacent to the old system. Call takers will be trained on the new system while the old system is still functioning as it is today. And I see that probably happening at the training happening at one facility, and one facility going live at the conclusion of that training. And then the backup center will then be transitioned over to the new equipment, and people will be able to move back and forth between the facilities as they need to. But no flash cut, nothing risky by any respect. And all of this will take place at the most quiet time of the day, so that we don't have we have as little bit of interruption to the normal workflow as possible.
Is that enough training? Half-day call taker class?
The half-day training is a 4-hour class for each student, and it's very, very intuitive, very user-friendly user interface in the workstation. The administrator class is longer, but with all respect, these are very professional individuals. They've been in this business for a while. I think you could sit them down in front of our call taker workstation, and in as little as 20 minutes, they would be able to function every aspect of that workstation. It's very, very intuitive, as I mentioned, very user-friendly. And so that 4-hour class really digs down into the basics and goes over each and everything that they might ever come up against in the workstation.
So how do you determine whether they get it, whether they're getting it? I mean, a 4-hour class, do you give them some type of test or drills towards the end? Because there may be some folks that maybe 4 hours won't do it.
Good question. So we will be giving a test at the end. It's a very basic test, obviously, but it does cover much of the training so that we can very clearly understand that they're on board. Again, it's very intuitive in the respect that you click answer to answer, release to release, transfer to transfer. And so most of the people who have gotten to this point are obviously very skilled professional people, and capable of operating a computer very, very easily. And one of the similarities in our equipment, a large number of the engineers that are employed by Solacom were formerly employed by CML, which is the manufacturer of your existing equipment today that has served you so well for 20 years. And so there's a tremendous amount of similarity between what the call takers are looking at today and what they'll be looking at going forward. The features and functionality are extremely similar, so it should be a very smooth transition. We'll be providing ongoing training for anyone who needs additional training, where there's turnover and additional staff coming on board across the county. We'll make sure that each and every one of those individuals has the appropriate training. We offer a product called Advanced Remote Monitoring, where we're actually able to watch the system, all aspects of the system, 250 plus hardware and software alerts, and over 140 third-party alerts. So we're able to see the 911 system at Gateway and Burns remotely, and we're able to see all the call taker workstations and watch for potential issues ahead of time, typically alerting the county of a problem before they're even aware of that situation. So that's a service that we offer, and it's a very valuable service that most customers do take advantage of. So in today's IP world and computer technology, it's very easy to maintain a large part of this remotely, and limits your footprint on the ground as far as technicians go. So as far as text to 911, we will be able to receive those calls right out of the gate when the system goes live, providing the capability is in place from the text control center. That's called a TCC now. That's a new component. As it relates to 911, people will send a text to 911. The text control center will intercept that call and then send that call to the appropriate PSAP, much like our wireless 911 calls are sent to the appropriate PSAP today. And so the call takers will possess all that capability to communicate with these callers very efficiently in the same workspace that they'll be answering voice calls in. Obviously, the county will want to undertake a public awareness campaign to educate county residents that the technology is now in place. Today, if you send a text to 911, you'll get a bounce back message that says that this service is not available to you in this area, that you should call 911. So it would be nice to alert the county residents that this capability exists when it does come forward. And there will be times, as indicated in this picture here, where people will prefer or find the need to text 911 versus call them. Clearly, calling is preferred. And so this is just a snapshot of that call taker workstation. If you can see this image here, very intuitive. In the top left-hand corner there, you'll see the release key. So it's very user-friendly. We can strike the space bar on the keyboard to answer a call, release to release, answer to answer, transfer. We have total control over the 911 caller, and something that's unique to Solacom is we own our own call control. So it's something that we can adjust on the fly as PSAPs tell us needs that they have. So we can have a multi-party conference consisting of as many people as a call taker deems necessary to bring on the line with no degradation in the voice quality. In addition, the call taker can control every party on that call. So if we have someone where we want to silence them from participating, we can do that. If you have someone that you want to silence them from hearing, you can do that as well. So the call taker will have a tremendous amount of control. Another feature that they don't have today is joining two calls in progress together. So if an officer clears the scene and he leaves a department's phone number behind, and he says, give us a call if this subject returns or you find this stolen item. If that individual calls into the police department, for example, the call taker will be able to connect that caller to the police officer's cell phone, for example, without giving it out. And just an example where they can tie two calls in progress together, where today that wouldn't be possible. As I mentioned, it's very intuitive. You see some fire icons there in the middle of the screen. Clicking on those would connect out to any fire department. On a police tab, we would have police-related icons. The PSAP will have the ability to change essentially every icon that you see there on the screen to meet their personal needs and likes, and make it even more intuitive than it is currently. So a very, very capable call taker user interface, and again, somewhat like they have today, and I think they will transition very, very easily into this new equipment. Another aspect of the project is mapping, and this is actually a call-taking map, which will alert a call taker of the location of the call and the type of call before the call is even answered. And so we'll be able to see if it's a wireline call, a wireless call, or a text to 911 call, and we'll see physically on a map where that call is at. We can break it down by parcel, and we can also introduce GIS data into the background here and turn on orthophotography, for example, where we can see a very realistic image into that property. So the map is also very intuitive. You can clearly see when a call is ringing, what type of call that is, if it's been answered, if you've answered it versus another call taker, if the call taker is abandoned or if they've been placed on hold. All of this will also be visible on the map to further enhance the call taker's capability to multitask and process calls very, very quickly. So some differentiators with our company. We are a long-term next-generation 911 solution provider. We do own our own call control, as I mentioned. We don't use an open-source soft switch. I won't dig into that, but a lot of our competitors do use an open-source soft switch, which does have inherent issues. Our solution does not use that and is completely redundant, and in this particular case will be geodiverse in addition to that redundancy. Not only do we provide text to 911, but we provide it in the same level of call distribution as all other calls. And the 911 center can make the determination on how they want to deal with those calls. They can either answer them in the order that they're received, or they can assign a particular individual to focus on only answering text calls. However you choose to do that is entirely up to you. But I think text to 911 will become the wave of the future, and we will need to begin answering those calls in the order that they're received going forward. Another capability that we have that no other 911 vendor has currently is text from 911, where we can initiate a text out to any person in the county, any law enforcement provider or employee to fill a shift, whatever the need might be. We can generate a text from 911 to another party. And so I think that's a huge benefit, especially as it relates to hang-up calls. Hang-up calls are an issue that plague 911 centers and tax resources. Some departments actually dispatch a car on every hang-up call. Others choose to call them back and verify that there is no emergency at that location. What we're finding with text from 911 is we're able to resolve a lot of those as high as 80% of the time without having to dispatch a car to go out there and confirm that there is no emergency. Some enhanced call taking features there, some of those that they have today as well. But in addition to that, we have join, monitor, barge in, and things like that that they don't have today. Exclusive hold and a few other features there. Annie notes, being able to capture notes on a particular telephone number and keep that information. We have a variety of support options. We'd be open to discussing those with the county as well. And as Administrator Cortez mentioned, we would be able to build and deliver a system within 90 days. And installation would begin immediately thereafter. So this is my last slide. We would be providing turnkey installation services, project management, connectivity to the county and the state level when that becomes available. Establishing an interface to the existing CAD and mapping systems at the county level, and providing training, as I mentioned, to all of the call takers throughout the county. So lastly, we'll be providing up to 3 free seats of training on our system. So if the county has a technician that they want to employ to maintain this hands-on on this equipment, we'll certainly provide the free training in Chicago for them to learn the extensive ins and outs of this solution and be able to maintain it locally. But any questions for me?
Commissioners, we still have to work out, the complete list of deliverables and cost. 911 equipment is exempt from competitive procurement and sealed bidding under the Ohio Revised Code. Tracy is here, our 911 director. My understanding is Hal's working on the list of deliverables that we want to agree to with your company, and then we will negotiate price thereafter, so that we have a very well-defined and clear understanding of what exactly we're buying, because there is some options and capabilities. To Commissioner Lundy's questions, I will definitely ensure we have adequate training, and there's always the ability to procure more training should we need it, and we can definitely negotiate additional training into what the capabilities are. I would ask now, if you don't have any additional questions, maybe Tracy would like to.
Yeah, I do have a few.
Oh, I'm sorry,
questions. That's okay. Just curious with the way the technology is moving so fast. You talk about text to 911. Be honest with you, I guess I never really thought about that before. I could see those possibly with the hearing or some other disabilities or whatever, certainly being able to utilize that. The thing I was curious about was, are we soon going to see the day where somebody's at a crash site and they almost call you through FaceTime, I guess, where you're seeing a visual image of what's actually going on at that location at the time? Is this software take that into consideration, or something being looked at for the future? Or?
It's very possible. I don't think we're quite there yet. We do develop the majority of all of our capabilities based upon NENA standards. NENA stands for the National Emergency Number Association, so we work very closely with them. We sit on their boards and work very closely with other vendors in the industry to develop this technology going forward, but in a way that makes sense and doesn't overwhelm the 911 center. I think one of the concerns as it relates to introducing pictures and video with these 911 calls is the potential to overwhelm the person that's answering the phone. They don't typically work in a first responder capacity. They're not used to this potential overwhelming picture of a severed limb or something. And so we need them to function extremely well and very expeditiously. The last thing we want to do is overwhelm them. So I think while pictures and video are definitely a wave of the future, I think it'll be dependent upon every PSAP to make that determination. Do we have these viewable by every call taker? Do we only want a supervisor to be able to see this, or do we not want to see them at all? And I think you'll be able to throttle those upstream as the technology becomes available and determine whether or not those even ever reach your PSAP and may be just archived for investigative purposes. But
Yeah, I just wasn't sure, you know, when a crew's going to the scene, if somebody's saying, well, here's whatever the house fire looks like, or here's what the accident scene looks like, so they know what they're, you know, coming upon, I guess, before they get there. Just the, you know, equipment that you're proposing for us, so this is, we're not the guinea pig on this. This is stuff that's already in use, or is this another generation that you're first trying to bring in here?
that is true, yes. We have many sites across the country, and in fact, I apologize, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of sites. I'm just wondering with this brand of equipment, because I know the equipment constantly evolves.
Oh, yes, that is true, yes. We would give you our latest software release that had been fully tested and in our lab before it was released to the field, yeah.
And your company is based out of Chicago?
We have a Chicago office. We also have our manufacturing and development is in Gatineau, Quebec.
Quebec, okay.
Which is where the existing system that you have came from today. Different company, but in the same town. It's kind of a Silicon Valley of the Ottawa region.
Do you want Tracy to come on up? Tracy?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Tracy.
You know, we're excited to be looking at this equipment. We've definitely gotten some good use out of the equipment that we have. It's been a reliable system. And as Mr. Dixon was saying, it's as far as the learning curve, you know, it's going to be an easy transition. The software is similar. Obviously, it's new technology. We're definitely thinking that this equipment, and we've realized this equipment will take us, you know, far into the future. As far as the text messaging, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. From the research that I've done, the conferences that I've went to, the PSAPs, you know, the public safety answering points, they're kind of saying that they're getting 3-4 text messages a month. So it's not a widely used method at this point, but I agree with Mr. Dixon that it will be in the future. So we're definitely looking in that direction. Our concern, of course, is, as Greg was saying, is the staffing. Will one person be handling the text messages while the others are handling the calls? That's something that we'll need to look at as well. But at this point, the centers, and you, I don't know if you have different, Greg, they don't seem to be overwhelmed with the text messaging at this point. I think they will be in the future. That'll be a widely used method, but we're very excited about this system. We've done quite a bit of research on other systems as well. We do like the feature of being able to initiate an outbound text, which is important for us when it comes to hang up calls or texts that come in.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that a little bit on the hang up, because I really found that intriguing on the outgoing text. Because there's statistical data that indicates that on a callback from the center, 90% of the time they don't answer the callback from the center when we're doing the callback on a hang-up. But that 80% of the time they answer the text. Or I may have the numbers a little bit wrong, but it's significant the amount of times they'll answer that text, right?
That's correct, right.
So can you talk a little bit to that, or did I do a good job?
I think you did a good job, but I can answer any questions that you have.
It's a fear factor. They don't pick up the phone.
Right.
There was a hang-up that we call back to ensure the safety and try to determine
Correct.
why the hang-up occurred. 90% of the time, nobody answers the phone. They're afraid. But when we text them, somehow they're not afraid to text back that they're fine, everything's okay, it was an accident.
Correct.
And that's all we're really concerned with at that point, unless it's a multiple repeat. just to ensure the well-being of the person who hung up the phone. I was really surprised by that.
Right, and
Does that-
also, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Does that help with abuse cases? I know we're entering this age where people are trying to use code words and different ways of explaining that
Yes.
if they're being abused at the home or threatened at the home in some way, that there's somewhat secret way they can get the message to somebody to indicate that they do need help at the time.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I think it was Virginia Tech, the shooting that they had at Virginia Tech a while back. The students tried to text because that was their primary method of communication, and they were unable to. And you're right, with domestic abuse cases where the person cannot talk, we've had people actually tap on the phone receiver to let us know that they're understanding what we're saying because they can't talk. They're in a situation where they cannot communicate with us. So text, makes that nonverbal communication to the 911 center.
And right now, you're, from my recollection, you were the only one with the outgoing text right now.
That is correct.
The other company that I spent some time with, that was in there, what did they call it? They had a word for their future what they were going to do in the future. I forget what it was. It was in their mapping or something to do in the future. They were still a few years out from being able to do outbound text.
Right, so that was a key element for us. It's very important for us to be able to do the outbound text versus just the incoming.
Just to clarify, there are third-party products that do offer outbound text capability, but we're the only 911 vendor that actually has it incorporated in the 911 workstation.
Right, into your system, right.
I don't have anything else.
Tracy, I also want you to introduce our new IT
Sure.
supervisor that's working under Ernie, but also concentrating on 911 and making some of our transitions as we grow. Bill, you want to come up for a second? Guess I should have prepared you a little better, but that's usually how we do things around here.
On the fly.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Vasilios Tsardoulias, but I go by Bill to make things a lot easier.
So I had him introduce himself. Yeah.
Been working for Airgas for 16 years and transitioning here. I've been working with Tracy and Ernie to kind of incorporate into the IT structure here, and it's been very good. It's a very complicated system, the 911. There's a lot of servers, a lot of recordings, a lot of stuff to keep up. Obviously, this system is well weighted, 20-year-old system to do 911. With the new technologies that incorporate, I can see a lot of advantages into these new systems.
So Bill has been working with us, as he was saying, for probably 4 weeks now. So learning our systems, just the ins and outs, and like he said, we obviously know it's a very complex system, but he's done well. He's diagramming things for us and working with us down at the agency.
Wonderful.
Good.
Must have a comfort level since it's similar to the product that we have now and it just upgraded. It's going to be easy transition.
Yes.
That makes me feel
Yeah.
good because we want to make sure that when somebody calls 911, we're going to get the response that they need.
We absolutely do. We know that's our first line of, our first priority is to make sure that we have a smooth transition, that our dispatchers are well aware of the software and can operate it, and we don't have any downtime.
Can you talk a little bit more about, you said you can see a problem from your off-site. What kind of problems would you be able to anticipate happening at our center that you would see off-site?
Sure, we would be able to monitor. There's over I think 350 different areas within the system and the workstation. So we would be able to tell if a workstation is running a little hot, if the memory is maxing out, if the workstation is having other known issues or it's locking up. As far as the system goes, many different aspects in the system we would be able to monitor and see ahead of time that something just doesn't look quite right, and be able to look at it remotely or contact the local county technician if we needed hands and feet on the ground here.
So the 90 days is your build time. What's the installation time?
That would have to be determined. There's 16 different locations. 2 of those are obviously quite complex, but the other 14 are very minimal. And I would estimate certainly within the next 30 days following delivery, those smaller PSAPs would probably be each would be a 1-day installation, but the primary and the backup would obviously be a little more time consuming. And so I would say within the 30 days after the delivery that we should be able to have everything in and running.
Training component, would that be a concurrent process as you install at each site? Or would that be a global component?
We would typically train, let's say, for example, it did take us 30 days to install. We would probably focus on training in that 3rd week, just to be sure that everyone has that level of familiarity as recently as possible before the system goes live.
Okay.
But it would, we'll certainly work with these departments and meet their individual needs for training as well.
Okay. Commissioners, I would like to move forward. I want to get our new center up and opening. I have certain urgencies that I've explained to you before. I feel comfortable. I would like to negotiate the deliverables and price, and if finding that satisfactory, I'd like to get a contract with the company and move quickly. If you
So you're asking for a resolution to let you enter contract with prosecutors?
I am.
All right. I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Anything further? Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Thanks, Greg. Get to
Thank
work.
Thank you,
you.
Commissioners,
You-
Administrative Court House Director.
You
Appreciate your
worked
time.
for me before. You know this isn't going to be pleasant.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah, you're going straight to heaven. So, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Not too many people come back for a second trip. Glutton for
Probably why he
punishment.
left too.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners report.
Okay. Not a lot. It was a short week since Memorial Day. Saturday, my grandson Gavin had his first baseball game, fast pitch baseball.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of painful
Fast
to
pitch.
watch, but it was
Okay.
really good. It was
Wow.
fun. And then Saturday, all 3 commissioners walked in both the Elyria and Lorain Memorial Day parades, and saw a lot of people out there. Beautiful weather. Threw some candy. Commissioner Kalo gave all the dogs on the route a dog treat. It was really nice event, both of them. Then yesterday, I had my Goodwill Board meeting and our executive meeting. I'm going to be vice president of that board while I'm president of this board. So, and some good news, we are going to be opening a new store in Sheffield Lake at Shoreway Shopping Center. So I'm looking forward to that opening up over there. Dennis Bring, the mayor over in Sheffield Lake, bending over backwards to get Goodwill in there. So it was very good cooperation with the city of Sheffield Lake. So looking forward to that. End of my report.
Okay. Yeah, congratulations. Did stop by Friday night, Rocking on the River. They reopened Black River Landing with Bob Early. Great job as always, great turnout. Like to see the support downtown Lorain. Again, great job by both organizations who set up Memorial Day parades. It went smooth. Us getting out, transferring, making it to both worked out perfect. And then
Thank you,
congratulations.
Tony.
Thanks to
Tony.
Tony Ann. Yes, our assistant made sure everything was scheduled properly. And then congratulations. New president of Oberlin College, Carmen Twilley Amber. Welcome to the county. Good luck to President Krizoff, who's going to Pace University. I had the opportunity to meet with him a couple of times. Great organization out there in Oberlin. They really do a lot for our community. And now we have 2 female college presidents in Lorain
Wow,
County.
isn't that
great.
good?
Wonder how often that happens.
Right.
So, yeah, congratulations. Welcome to the community, and maybe we can get an opportunity to meet with the new president of Oberlin College
Yeah,
and
like to do that.
see what her vision is coming here, and maybe it'll tie in with things we are doing.
Absolutely.
End of my report.
Had the opportunity to meet recently with our consultants on our Lakefront Lorain County plan, and we'll be announcing soon the two remaining dates, one for Avon Lake, one for Lorain, to gather public feedback. Also had the opportunity to attend the Addis Board had the 2016 Pride Student Survey, and some of the results that came out of that, they had polled more than 2,200 students in Lorain County. Indication is that overall drug use is down. Also is finding that 10th graders are more likely to use these e-cigarettes than cigarettes, which has always been a concern. Everybody thinks these e-cigarettes is the way to go, but I think the tobacco industry knows it's a way to pave the road for future tobacco use. And overall, though, the number that was most alarming in some of the statistics that came out, and these are the students self-reporting, and something that we need to take seriously. Overall, 26.8% of the students reported feeling sad or hopeless in 2016. The concern is social media having an impact on a lot of people when you see sometimes how other families live or other kids live or other experiences that others are having and wondering why you're not having those same experiences or not feeling accepted or not having as many friends. This social media is certainly having an impact. But perhaps the number that's most alarming is that 1 in 6 students reported seriously considering attempting suicide. And that's very, very troubling. So, for the parents to have those conversations with your kids, the kids were reporting 33% of the students surveyed said that their parents talk about the dangers of drugs. But it's just so important to stay connected with their kids these days, make them realize that it's important. They don't have to judge their life based upon other people's lives, just live their own lives. But some of those numbers were quite alarming, but should be able to find that online at the Addis Board. And then also it was enjoyable being in the Memorial Day parades. I think that's some of the best weather we've had in a long time. Normally we're sweating and overheated and ready to drop after a while, but those went really well. It was always good seeing many folks lined up for the parades and the good turnout. And obviously we remember those who fought and died for our country on through the Memorial Day ceremonies. And that completes my report.
Tuesday, June 6th at 9:30, you guys are going to be at the Luther Ditch in Pittsfield Township. Board correspondence.
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Public comment?
Anybody wishing to address the board this morning? Don't all rush up at once. See none, I move that we go into executive session as outlined by the administrator and assistant county prosecutor.
Second.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.